What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to this week's edition of the Somewhat Sports Podcast. Because you're hearing my voice first, you all know what that means. Sadly, our fearless leader, Chris, is unable to join us this week. He's out on assignment. He's handling, things. This is a very important man in the sports media industry, boys, and the media industry as a whole. I don't know if you guys know, he's part of a very successful film podcast that is doing amazing as well. But while Chris is out, of course, that means we get time to play here, as always, on a weekly basis. Whenever Chris is not here, I always have Dame with me. Dame, how are we doing today?
I'm doing good. Nothing new in my life, but here we are.
Here we are is the perfect analysis. I mean, Dame, it's kind of funny because Chris tends to sit himself out when it comes to talking baseball, but that's what we're going to do a lot of today, Dame. We are going to talk Major League Baseball playoffs. The regular season is over. The playoffs are here, Dame. I'm super excited to say the very least. It's going to be a jam-packed episode. We're going to review the wild card rounds coming up for Major League Baseball. We're also going to talk NFL today as well. Not what we've done the last couple of weeks. We're going to kind of shorten it down to mainly the main points of what's happened from last NFL week. In terms of important happenings, including a critical injury that happened in last week's Thursday night football game. Hopefully, nothing happens in tonight's game as we're recording this. Of course, it is pre-Broncos Colts, and of course, as always, we're going to end this with our new favorite weekly segment of Crowns and Clowns. Of course, that means no NHL talk, but we kind of have to make some concessions this week, ladies and gentlemen. So it is what it is. But Dame, because we're talking baseball, we're talking football, right? So we have baseball, we got the bunts, and with football, physical sport, guys get hit a lot. We got the bruises. So it's only right. We are still running a three-man show, ladies and gentlemen, this week because joining me for the first time in a while, my cohort from the Bunts and Bruises podcast, the man, the baseball don himself, James Barcia, my brother. It's been way too long. How we doing?
Oh, Jurg, stop it. You make me blush as always, man. I'm living life. They wrote me off, but I ain't right back. I'm here. Let's do it, guys. I'm excited to be here talking sports once again.
I love the callback. Fun fact: Geno Smith was actually my first crown of the season. Bars. So look at that. The chemistry is back. We keeping it 200 now on this episode. It's absolutely beautiful. I'm excited for Bars to be back podcasting. It's been a little bit in part because personal life and new job and all that. I definitely understand that feeling. But had to get him on. It's the baseball playoffs. You think I'm not bringing the Don on to talk baseball? You must be out your dang mind. So we're not going to waste any more time here, boys. It is MLB playoff time. It's the most wonderful time of the year as we build up to the fall classic itself, the World Series. Of course, we got to start out with the wild card round that is starting tomorrow. As we are recording this, of course, per the usual podcast tagline, we're recording this on a Thursday. So we got the AL and the NL wildcard series all starting on one day, which is actually pretty crazy. Of course, this is the first official year of the expanded wild card. It was technically expanded to the 2020 season. They made that permanent this time around, as now we have an extra wild card team on both sides. The top two teams now get buys, and we have best of three series here, boys. We're going to start in the AL side of things, and I think we're going to start with a 3 versus 6 matchup. Could be a very interesting matchup, to say the least. It is the Cleveland Guardians versus the Tampa Bay Rays going at it. The Rays being the sixth and final seed in the AL, whereas the Guardians, shock winners, I think most would argue, of the AL Central. I think I could speak for all three of us, as we did not expect the Cleveland Guardians to end up winning the division this year, considering the White Sox last year, the Twins in the first half of the year looked like they were good. Irregardless, by all logic, Cleveland wins the division because, of course, why not? Should be a very interesting division, to say the least. The biggest breakdown for me personally, boys, is the pitching is going to be the bigger story here than I think the hitting. These are two of the lesser teams in terms of runs scored on the season. I think of all the teams that scored 700 or less runs in that are entering the MLB postseason, I think all of them belong in the AL side of things, and these are two of those three teams. The Rays actually with the least amount of runs scored by any team coming into the playoffs. So, Bars, I want to throw it over to you first. These are two very interesting teams. The Guardians, kind of the shock team. The Rays, plenty of some playoff experience on this team, but not the hottest they've been. This is definitely the weakest Rays team we've seen in the last couple of years. What are your thoughts on the series, Bars?
Like you said, man, it's a shocker of just Guardians being up here. But at first I thought it it was too good to be true, but they've proven it time and time again. Maybe the name change washed off all the stink, but who knows? Their bullpen is impeccable. I saw something earlier today. Their bullpen, I think, is the second best bullpen ranked. Number one was the Astros. That's how all these analysts have them ranked in the playoffs. And just aside from that, position by position, I think they most likely beat the Rays, aside from shortstop and maybe DH. In terms of offense, I don't see a way the Rays could do it. But as everyone knows, every time in the postseason, they just figure out a way. Some magic happens. Their analytic guys, crunch a couple more numbers or what it may be. But I just think overall, the Guardians pitching is what got them here, and it's what's going to help them win this wild card series.
Yeah, I mean, like you guys mentioned, no one expected the Guardians to be here. A lot of people picked the White Sox to win that division, and pretty easily because of how bad the division is. But who knows what got into the Guardians? And honestly, their strength is their pitching. Clearly, started by Shane Bieber at the top, and going all the way down through their bullpen. They have two of the best relievers in the game in Clase and James Kaepernick, I think his name is. The guy that always does crazy shit when he like strikes a guy out. It's pretty funny, but yeah, I mean, both these teams are so evenly matched, I think, because the Rays are fourth in team ERA and the Guardians are sixth. And both these teams' strengths are their pitching. The Rays get a big guy back in Tyler Glass now for the postseason, who's been injured most of the year. So I think that's going to be a big boost to them. But I think Jurg kind of mentioned this. Um, the Rays, I personally expected more from them this season. They aren't as good as they used to be the past couple of years. Like, the past couple of years, they were arguably the best team in the AL year after year, without having any star power. But this year, they kind of took a step back. I know injuries took a part in that, but still, they just don't look like the same team they were the past couple of years. However, I'm still going to go to Rays in this series. I know they're away, and it's kind of hard 3 games in a row to win 2 out of 3 away games. But I just think the Rays have that postseason experience. Like I said, they've been there the past couple of years. They've been in the biggest one. They've been to the World Series. They have the experience needed to win the 2 out of 3 games in Cleveland. I'm sure Cleveland's going to be electric. No one in Cleveland expected the Guardians to be that competitive this year, but here they are. But I just think at the end of the day, with Kevin Cash managing that team and that lineup being able to get big hits in timely moments, I think I'm going to go with the Rays in 3 over the Guardians.
Very fair. And like you said, Damon, this could potentially play a factor. Maybe not so much in this series, but perhaps the other series is the fact that all three of these games are going to be played at one venue. And, you would think on paper it could favor more so the home team, but at the same time, who knows? Maybe some teams, they just rely on that away magic. And Bars kind of mentioned the Tampa Bay Rays, and you as well. Like, they find a way sometimes to get a little bit of something going. And it's almost like they're better as the underdog. Because remember last year, as the favorite, as the home team against Boston right well wreck them. So I think it makes sense actually from that basis that you might actually give the Rays a little bit more benefit of the doubt here as the underdog, which is kind of weird to say, but the it kind of fits the organization as a whole. By the way, I'm going to be calling them the Devil Rays in this series, boys, because their total runs scored on the season 666. Perfect time to bring back the Devil Rays name for this series, if you ask me. The other AL wildcard matchup here, this could be very intriguing just because of the headline acts between these two teams. The Toronto Blue Jays, the 4th seed, taking on the Seattle Mariners, the 5th seed. Of course, we know what this team... It's funny, last series was kind of like the pitching series, guys. I think this is the hitter series right here, where the hitting is going to make the difference. In Toronto, need I say anymore? You have the children of the 90s there with Vlad Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, who had an amazing year to say the least, and now the talent that they're surrounded by. Not so much children of 90s baseball players, but still pretty good guys in and of itself. George Springer, the veteran, Matt Chapman, the free agent pickup. You have Raimel Tapia, who's there. Teoscar Hernandez with an amazing year. Just overall talent throughout that hitting core in Toronto. Whereas in Seattle, first time in over 2 decades that they make the playoffs. Eugenio Suarez, 30-plus home runs. J-Rod, the AL Rookie of the Year. Cal Raleigh, 27-plus home runs from the catcher. That's big. This is really going to be the series where, as the pitching is fine on both sides, but I think this is where the hitting is going to come into effect. So, Dame, throw it over to you. These are two teams that, relatively speaking, not a lot of playoff experience here. Who do you lean towards in this situation where both teams kind of on paper, you can't give experience to one over the other, whereas with Tampa and Cleveland, you can give Tampa a bit of an edge there?
Yeah, both these teams is kind of the opposite of the Rays and Guardians series. I think both these teams' strength are their hitting, and I mean, the Blue Jays were my preseason World Series pick, so it's gonna be hard for me to do this. But I'm picking against them in the series. I'm gonna go with the Mariners. I just think the Mariners finally, after making the playoffs, I think they had the longest drought in baseball history of not making playoffs since like 2001, I believe. Like that's a long time of being a fan and not making the playoffs. I know the Blue Jays are home. I'm pretty sure, but still, I think with all these young players and all this kind of young energy and enthusiasm that this Mariners team plays with, the Luis Castillo acquisition at the deadline was massive. He's a frontline starter for them. They've other young starters as well. And I know the Blue Jays have their pitching as well with Manoah and Gosman, and of course all that hitting. But it's kind of like the Rays. I kind of expected more from them this season. Obviously, I had them as my World Series pick, but even regardless, like people that didn't have them as their World Series pick, I think were kind of disappointed in them as well. I thought their hitting should have been a lot better. I thought they were going to maybe acquire another pitcher at the deadline, improve their bullpen, but they still made it to the playoffs. They're still hosting the wild card, but I just think at the end of the day, with just this energy that this Mariners team plays with, I kind of think it's similar to the Blue Jays last year. It's kind of that young and upcoming team that maybe next year people are gonna have them as a World Series pick. But I think this year, I see the Mariners again, another away team, beating the Blue Jays in the series in three.
You know, Jurg, this is the great thing about podcasting. People would think we made this up just to cause conflict, but we didn't. I've been a big supporter of the Blue Jays. You know, I've actually, just like Dame, picked them to be World Series contenders, if not win the whole thing. And here I am. I'm taking them opposite of him. I'm taking them in this series as well. Because, like you said, they might not have, both these teams may not have the playoff experience. But what I will give the Blue Jays over the Mariners, which let me tell you, the Mariners are a great Cinderella story. Love watch them this whole season with Julio Rodriguez coming up. But the thing that, aside from just in my personal opinion, I think the Blue Jays have a better top two when it comes to pitching rotation because they are similar, but their top two beats Mariner top two. But what the Blue Jays have most is they have more superstars in their team, and I think that's what's going to make up for the lack of playoff experience because Seattle is a younger team, and although they don't have many people who have this experience of being in the playoffs. You do have George Springer, who's been there, done that. Some people say he might have cheated, whatever it may be. He's been there and he's done that. And aside from that, I think that's what's going to help them out is just star power.
Yeah, oh yeah, 100% fair bars. I'm kind of with you. I'm leaning more towards the Blue Jays, but I will say, and this is just a question. I mean, Dame can chime in if he wants to, but do the Mariners give you Team of Destiny vibes, bars? First time in 20 years, like
You
it's
know, it's like I said, it's a nice story. I think this is the beginning of something very bright. I don't think this is going to be the year where they make that deep run. If they do win this series, I don't think they make it any further than that, but within the next 2 to 3 years, I wouldn't be shocked if they're regularly contending for a World Series.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, this is the least confident series I picked in, but I don't know. I have a feeling that the series is gonna go the Mariners' way, but it's again the least confident I am because I think the Blue Jays are more experienced, and I like Bars mentioned their top two is definitely better than the Mariners' top two.
right, right, and it's actually ironic considering the ace of the pitching rotation for the Mariners, Robbie Ray, Toronto Blue Jay last season, AL Cy Young winner last season. So perhaps a little bit of revenge there for the Blue Jays to try to whack a couple homers off their old teammate there, don't you think? But that definitely will be an interesting series. I think, honestly, on paper, aside from the Guardians Rays series, I think there's a lot of interesting series here. We haven't even gotten to the NL yet. Before we get to the NL, just a real quick talk about the top two teams from the AL this season. The second seed overall is the Yankees. Need I say too much more about this team other than Aaron Judge is going to be the MVP this season? Whereas the top seed overall in the AL is the Houston Astros. Still have a lot of that core that was there in that World Series from all those years ago. Actually, some pieces have left, but they still have Jose Altuve. They still have Alex Bregman. They've added pieces since then in Jordan Alvarez and Tucker. Verlander with a true bounce back season. He looked like a Cy Young candidate in moments this year, to say the very least. Bars, just any comments you have about the Yankees and Astros? What makes these teams so good? But what could be their Achilles heel in these playoffs? Because sometimes bars, the top seeds, at least one of them fall. So what we know these teams are talented, but what could be their Achilles heel in this postseason?
In my opinion, what I'm gonna say is not only the main strength of this team, it's also the Achilles heel of this team, and that's Aaron Judge. Because if Aaron Judge isn't hitting, I don't have much hope in this Yankees team. It's, call me a Yankee hater if you want, but I've seen it with my own eyes. If he's not hitting or he's not producing, the rest of the team is okay. That includes Stanton. Stanton had a good year, yes, but was it anything particularly great? No. So he's the heartbeat of this team. Simple as that. We've seen what happens on the days he takes off, and you got to really question that third base position. Do you want Donaldson in there, who's been a little shaky? A lot of people want DJ in there, but then you got to question later in the game when you got a pinch hit for Kiner Falefa, or you got a pinch hit for just anybody else. You need that bench off the bat, or do you throw Matt Carpenter in the outfield? We've seen him in the outfield. There's too many moving parts, and the only consistent thing that's come out of here is Aaron Judge. That also counts as their pitching as well, because Garrett Cole should be the certified Game 1 pitcher, but you can understand why they may put Nestor Cortez out there for Game 1, or even Severino. It's just Aaron Judge, as I said, he is the Yankees, and if he's not doing well, I could see the Yankees just in total not doing well.
And the Astros?
And the Astros, I really don't see anything. I think they're going to win it all. I see them. I have no weakness for them. Their pitching, as you said, Justin Verlander, and their bullpen is just phenomenal, and I think that's what's going to take them down the strength, because their offense produces as always. And as you know, Jurg, pitching, 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 pitching. It's what wins rings.
Yeah. Yeah, to say the very least. And the pitching around Verlander, just to note, guys have really broken out this season, and Christian Javier and Framber Valdez. The two of them have been, just special at times this season. Dame, same thing to you. Both of these teams, Yankees and Astros, top two teams for a reason. Biggest strength for each of them and biggest weakness as well.
I think for the Astros, usually you think of the Astros, you think their hitting is their strength, but this year has really been the pitching. Justin Verlander is most likely going to win Cy Young with a sub-2 ERA. What a comeback for him coming back from Tommy John. Like you said, Valdez, that bullpen, something that if I had to pick one thing that I wouldn't trust with this team, it would be that bullpen, even though they've, based on ERA, bullpen ERA, they've been the best. It's just something I wouldn't trust. I've seen it throughout the season. In the biggest moments, they really haven't got it done. But I mean, if the bullpen pitches like they earned run averages, they're gonna win the whole thing. I don't think it's gonna even be close, because they're hitting from Altuve to Bregman to Alvarez to Tucker, all these guys top to bottom. This lineup doesn't stop. So it's really hard for me to pinpoint weakness for the Astros. As for the Yankees, obviously it's well known I'm a Yankee fan, but I literally have zero hope for this team. It's each and every single year the same problem in the postseason. A lot of people talk about their pitching, but it's really not their pitching. Every single postseason, their pitching shows up, and this year their pitching was their strength. They were third in the entire league in team ERA. The hitting is what screws them over every postseason. They scored like 2 or 3 runs, and it just isn't enough against some of these other teams. But like Bars mentioned, Aaron Judge is the way this offense goes. But I even think in the postseason, if Aaron Judge gets going, like it doesn't matter, because the rest of the team hasn't proven to me that I can trust them hitting in the biggest moments. So I think DJ LeMahieu and Andrew Benintendi being hurt hurts a lot, because that's two of their best contact hitters, and I think those two getting on at 1 and 2, and then Aaron Judge and Sand coming up, I think that could have been something. But with those two being hurt and probably both not being on the roster for ALDS, I think that's going to hurt them as well. But at the end of the day, from the fact that they can't hit, they're just a bad hitting team outside of Aaron Judge, and the fact that they just can't beat the Astros, and something they're most likely going to run into, I don't see the Yankees going anywhere.
Hey, and I know that's hard for Dame to admit, considering he is a Yankees fan, and he's very hopeful, especially at the beginning of the season. But it has been rough stretch really since August. There's been some rough stretches here. I think especially because, like you said, Dame, essentially past Aaron Judge, not a lot of guys have stepped up for that team, and you're going to need a lot of different people aside from Aaron Judge and Garrett Cole to step up for this team. That's for certain. So that is the AL side of things. Let's move on to the NL boys, and let's go and let's leave off. Let's pick it up on the NL where we left off with the AL. Let's talk about the top teams first here, really quick. The number 2 seed overall in the NL is the Atlanta Braves, winning the NL East, capturing it from the clutches of Steve Cohen and the New York Mets in the dying days of the regular season. To say the very least, pitching, as Barr said before, is a very similar thing with this team. My God, there's pitching on this team, but I mean, you talk about talent overall, and there's some hitting on the Braves. When you talk about talent, guys, it's the goddamn LA Dodgers. 111 wins, my God, not including the COVID season. I think it's 3 straight seasons of at least 106 wins or more. That is absolutely absurd. This team is supremely talented. They're clearly the team that has run the NL for the last little while now, 5, 6, 7 years going back. Two great teams. Dame, I'm gonna throw it to you. These are two overwhelming teams. What is going to keep us from seeing Braves Dodgers in the NLCS for the third straight year in a row, or is that just destiny at this point?
I think that what would stop it, I think, is the Dodgers. Although they won 111 games, I still think the Braves are a more complete team. The Dodgers have a lot of injuries from the bullpen. I can't even name you all their injuries. And starting rotation, starting Walker Buehler, their best pitcher, is hurt. I know Gosling had an injury. I'm pretty sure he's back by now, but still kind of recovering from that. So from their starting rotation to their bullpen, they do have a lot of injuries and a lot of guys that just aren't that experienced. Of course, you still have Clayton Kershaw, you have Urias. You still have guys that have been there, especially their lineup. Obviously, their lineup is insane from Mookie Betts, Max Muncy, Will Smith, Freddie Freeman, Trey Turner. I could go top to bottom, but their lineup is obviously going to be their strength. And if they do go all the way, it's going to be because the lineup just gets it done. Because I don't, although their starting rotation and their bullpen had the best team ERA in the entire league all season, it's kind of hard for me to trust them going to the postseason. Granted, they never been there and they never performed like they have in this regular season. So compared to the Braves, who I just think are probably after the Astros, I'd say are the best roster from top to bottom, from pitching rotation to bullpen to hitting. I mean, there is no easy out in this Braves lineup. Like I was with my boys the other day watching the Mets and Braves, and I was like, damn, like this guy's not easy out. The next guy comes up, not easy out, not easy out. Like none of these guys are guaranteed out. It's like all of them are stud hitters from 1 to 9, and that's really hard to deal with in the postseason where every out matters and every pitch is so important. So, and then obviously their rotation is great as well with Max Fried, Kyle Wright. Strider has been arguably the best rookie in a long time. But one of the best rookie pitchers in a long time in baseball. And obviously their bullpen has been pretty good as well. Adding Kenley Jansen was a extremely great move, and adding Iglesias from the Angels has been great. He has had a sub 1 ERA since he joined them. So I just think if the reason these teams don't meet up in the NLCS, I think is going to be because of the Dodgers. I just think the Dodgers have too much flaws and too much injury concern compared to the Braves, who I just think have arguably the best roster in the entire playoffs.
Right, and the Dodgers have it previously in like a best of 5 series as well in the DS. You think of when the Nationals won the World Series, they beat the Dodgers. In hindsight, 2020, considering the collapse the Nationals have had since, you feel like that was a massive missed opportunity for LA right there. Barr, similar thing, as a great man once said, does destiny arrive all the same here? Will we see Dodgers and Braves in your mind, or is that not meant to be?
I think it's not meant to be. Like Dame said, I think just it's not going to work out for the Dodgers this year. Just something about them this year. They look human. It's like that scene in Rocky when the Russian starts bleeding and he's like, oh, crap. It's basically that because just the injuries, the way it's lining up. Kershaw being healthy realistically is a huge get for them. But when you look at everything else, their bullpen's all beat up. You got Chris Taylor, who is their utility man, supposed to bounce everywhere when someone isn't hurt. He's beat up. And just in general, I think the Atlanta Braves as well, I think complete opposite. They're hot. They are gonna. It hurts me to say it because of what just happened this past week, but I completely think they are also. It's gonna be Astros Atlanta Braves World Series, just because they started off slow this season and everyone thought, oh, was it fatigue or not? But they did the same thing last year, the Braves. And just from top to bottom, they lose Freddie Freeman to the Dodgers. And here they are replacing with Matt Olson, who's just as good. He's barely a downgrade, if any. They're a complete team. Just like the Astros, I have really no faults against them. Pitching wise, they're set. Their starting lineup might not be as strong as other teams here, but they make it up offensively, and their starting isn't rotation isn't even that bad. So it's just they're a full machine there, and the Dodgers, I just complete opposite. I think they're coming towards the end of this great dynasty. I know it's crazy to say that with all this talent they have in the lineup, but they really need to get their pitching set because before having all this offensive firepower, that was really what their anchor was in all these postseason success.
Right. And in part with all this is mainly due to injury. You have a Walker Bueller out, you have a Gonsolin who actually was only activated days before the postseason, so he's just barely eligible to play. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Myself personally, I'm still expecting Braves Dodgers because I like seeing, Dodgers won 2 years ago, Braves won it last year. I got to see the rubber match. I got to see the rubber series right there. But before we get to that, of course, you have to talk about the wild card matchups. Six versus three, you got the Philadelphia Phillies, who also broke a postseason drought. I think it was 11, 12 years since their last postseason appearance, versus the dark magic of the St. Louis Cardinals. This team somehow finds a way to make it every single time. This team somehow finds a way to at least win a series. But I think almost beat the Dodgers last year. Took a walk-off home run actually by LA to take out the Cardinals, which kind of feels right considering it's the Cardinals themselves. Bars, I'm going to keep it with you. Phillies, Cardinals, thoughts about that series? Are we going to continue to see magic by the Cardinals, or are the Phillies, do they maybe have a little bit of something here? They kind of been a team we've been waiting on to get it together and make the postseason. What are your thoughts on this series?
I think it's a sweep, man. Give it to the Cardinals. Phillies stand no chance. I know they made it to the wild card, but I'm just always down on them. When you look at them, they're a team who has major holes. You look at the bullpen, their offense is hot. Sometimes it's not, but as we know, it's all about pitching in the playoffs. And the Cardinals, you got Nolan Arenado and Goldschmidt on the other side, and their entire starting lineup is great. So it's just Cardinals sweep. Next question.
Well, there we go.
Yeah, I'm the same exact way. I don't think although the Phillies obviously made the playoffs, it's only because of the expanded playoffs. I don't think they're that good of a team. I don't think they're as good as any of these teams in the NL playoffs. On the other side, I think the Cardinals are a great team, and I think this should be a sweep as well. Quick 2-0 in St. Louis.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So, Phillies fans not going to like this episode of the podcast, or at least this portion of the podcast, at the very least. But we move. Um, yeah. I kind of agree with you guys. It's nice to see the Phillies back in the postseason. Because they have been a roster for the last couple of years that have really built themselves up with all the talented names. There's some talented pieces there, but I think the Cardinals, like, they won the Central relatively comfortably for a reason, in part because the Central in both leagues kind of sucks. But the Cardinals are a legitimate team, and this being, I think, the last ride here, most likely for Adam Wainwright and Yadier Molina and Albert Pujols. Like, maybe, I mean, look, the Cardinals get magic so many times. Maybe they find one more run in them. God knows. Like, God knows if they do. They just tend to do this stuff. Who knows? But speaking of which, the last series we're going to talk about, Chris may not be here to talk about this, but we do have a Mets fan here. He's going to talk about this series last, ladies and gentlemen. Dame, I'm going to throw it to you first. Padres versus Mets. Mets led the division for a long time during the season, but faltered. In part, like, the Mets still played good, but the Braves just took it up several notches, to say the least, including ending the series, the season against them, sweeping them. But the San Diego Padres, talented team. Padres were disappointing last year. They missed the playoffs. They make it back this time around comfortably, too. They would have made the playoffs in the old format, being the fifth seed here. So, legitimate playoff team here. But the Padres still not looking as strong as a lot of people expected, especially after the Juan Soto deal. He struggled a bit in San Diego, in part Tatis being suspended when he was supposed to come back from injury. A lot of things going wrong. Can the Padres salvage this season, or are the Mets going to comfortably take this wild card series?
Um, just to start, I'm going to go with the Mets in this. I'm going to go with them in 3. Um, just to take a little shot at Chris, I did say the Mets collapse is coming. Then I kind of took it back, and then they kind of still happened. But it is what it is. But I do think the Mets are going to win the series. Although I do think the Mets are playing with fire. I saw reports that they might not even schedule DeGrom to start this round and save him for the Dodger series to pitch 2 games, which I just personally think is a little dangerous to look ahead. I just think you throw out Max and DeGrom 1-2, you get it over with. You get that couple extra day of rest, and then you worry about the next series when it comes. I think they'll win game 1. I think they'll lose game 2 if they don't start DeGrom, because although Padres have been disappointing, to end the season, their pitching has been the best in the league over the last couple months to end the season. So that's always dangerous. And when you have Juan Soto, although he's been struggling, when he was on the Nationals, he was a Mets killer, especially in Citi Field. So be careful for that. But I think they'll win game 1 and Max. They'll lose game 2, and then they'll have to throw the ground out in game 3. I think that'll be a dangerous game because you just never know what elimination game, what can happen. It's like basketball. You never know what can happen at game 7. It's the last game of the series, win or go home. But the Mets, they're definitely the better team here. They have better rotation. I won't say better bullpen because I'd say that's the Mets' Achilles heel here. But I think they have a better lineup as well. And obviously at home, Citi Field is a zoo out there in the postseason. It's an amazing atmosphere, and I think all those fans that haven't been in the playoffs, haven't experienced their team in the playoffs for so long, are gonna have so much energy and be so hyped during that series. I think that's gonna help the Mets prevail and win this series in 3.
Well, there we go. Bars, we finished the baseball talk with you. We get to talk. It's only right the first podcast in a while for you. You get to talk about your Mets here. Give us the breakdown. Why are the Mets clearly winning the series?
Man, I wish I was that confident about it. I can't say they're clearly winning it. I'm gonna take them just like Dame in 3, but I wouldn't be shocked if we lost, man. The main reason why is Yu Darvish is gonna be their game one pitcher, and just something about Yu Darvish, the Mets cannot hit him no matter what. So then that makes me a little worried that we're wasting the max start. And like Dame said, I'm playing no games. I'm starting to Grom game 2 because there's no guarantees here, especially with Starling Marte sitting out this series. Our offense, as everyone knows, has just been looking dead, completely dead, and that's mainly because Starling Marte has been injured. Without him, we're losing a major piece of the offense, and that just puts a lot more pressure on Lindor, Alonso's, and even Jeff McNeil's shoulders. So we don't have the depth because we didn't make the trades necessary. Uh, Rotation wise, I'll take us over the Padres any day, although it is close because they do have Joe Musgrove and Blake Snell, who's 50-50, but Chris Bassett as our number 3 is also kind of a 50-50 starting pitcher. And then I'll take our closer over their closer any day, but in the middles where it's a little murky, and I think I'll take the Padres. And what do we say, Jurg? Pitching, 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 pitching. So aside from the offense looking dead, I'm hoping they get a little fire in them, but Daniel Vogelback was not the trade we needed. Yes, he's a cute story. I love hearing my milkshake brings all the boys to the yard when he gets up to bat, but he's got figured out. Simple as that. We should have traded these prospects instead of calling Francisco Alvarez to play in one of the biggest series of the season and basically go 0 for 8 in his first at bats as a New York Met. We should have run way earlier if this is the path we were going to follow, but different day, I'll rant about it. So I'm going to take the Mets at 3, but I think it's a lot closer than I'd like to admit.
Fair. Hey, that is a level-headed Mets fan. If Chris was here, he'd probably say it was a sweep, and he would get Dame riled up with something along
Chris
those lines.
doesn't know what he's talking about, so I'd 100% expect that from him.
Love you, Chris. But yeah, that ends the baseball talk. The MLB playoffs are finally here when sports is really picking up. NBA and NHL are about to get going. The NFL season is continuing here. But the baseball playoffs are here. And despite what people say about baseball overall, considering the season is long, the games are long, et cetera, baseball playoffs are still a very special time of year. And I think we're set for a pretty good postseason here, boys. I think we're gonna have some fun series here in the wild card. It continues on. Bars doesn't know the next time he's gonna be behind a microphone, so he's like, "Let me give you guys my World Series prediction right now." But there's that. Of course, during the postseason, you guys will hear a little bit from me and Dame as we give playoff updates. Bars, of course, is he's like, let me give it to you all right now. Oh,
I got excited, man. I didn't even mean to pull trig like that. I just got excited.
Oh no, it's fair. It's fair. We love to have you back on the podcasting game, bud. So no issues with it at all. Like I said, all the sports happening about to happen at the same time. Let's talk about the one that is 4 weeks down, a full month of the season completed, but plenty more to go. It is the NFL, ladies and gentlemen. Week 4 has come and gone, and we're here to talk about some of the main things that happened in Week 4. Really, and to recap a couple things, we definitely don't have the time nor the attention span this past week to be able to go over every single game, but we have a couple notes here in terms of things that did happen that we're going to talk about one after another. So let's start with what happened not most recent, I'd say oldest, happened just before or just after we recorded last week's episode, of course. Bengals, Dolphins, Thursday Night Football. That's not the story. It doesn't really matter that the Bengals won the game. It doesn't matter that the Dolphins got their first loss. What matters is that Tua suffered what most are presuming to be his second concussion in the span of less than a week. He, of course, was just laying there on the field, fingers in an awkward position. Very scary sight. Happy to know that he is okay, but a lot of criticism coming the Dolphins, doctors, NFL's way. Criticism flying all around, to say the very least, which is not a surprise, and how the situation was potentially handled. Of course, we have to go by what's out there. I'm going to be honest here. Maybe I'm being a little bit reckless here, but I got to say, I'm convinced personally that there's a likelihood Tua had a concussion after the Bills hit from the game prior. Just when you look at the way how he got up, he kind of shook the cobwebs off. He fell right after. I don't think that's a back. He also grabbed his head. I don't know about you guys, but whenever I've had back pain, I don't grab my head. I don't know. Maybe I'm being naive here. I don't know what I'm talking about, but I think to say the very least, there was definitely a lot of different people that failed in this aspect that led to Tua sadly being put in that position. right there. Bars, I want to throw it over to you first. Obviously, scary sight. Just what was your reaction to, not even just to his injury, what was your reaction to the reaction to his injury? Because I feel like the news of the injury is one thing, but the way everyone reacts is another. And I think a lot of people said a lot of crazy, outlandish things, etc. when it came to his injury and the fallout from there.
I think the reaction should have been even louder, to be honest, because when I first saw that injury on Sunday, my initial thought was it was his hip acting up, just the way he landed and stuff, and the way he kind of did that hobble thing. But when I saw the replay, he clearly was shaken up and had concussion. So it was a shock that even on Sunday he really went back out there because you figure this guy is the franchise of the team. And if I remember correctly, I think they were up in that game when he actually did get knocked down. But and then to just see him on Thursday, it looked like the lightest tap that made it happen. Like, I mean, yes, it's the NFL. No tap is the lightest tap. Is basically getting hit by a semi, no matter what. But it didn't look as bad as most. And when you saw his fingers lock up, man, that was just something you never want to see, no matter who it is, no matter what team. Just it wasn't a pretty sight, man. And you really worry uh when or if Tua's ever going to play again, man. It's not crazy enough to say that was a career-ending injury for him if he decides to retire. From the scene we saw, imagine how his family felt watching that. If that's how I felt watching that, so it's just I'm upset about it because clearly somebody messed up, but money talks, man. I'm not shocked if they made him go out there because it was a Thursday night national game and, Joe Burrow versus Tua. Like I said, money talks. It's just disgusting.
Right.
NFL, what can you say?
Yeah, right. Dame, I want to throw like this idea because this was the idea that popped in my mind. The culture to me of sports like football and also the other combat and physical sports like hockey, MMA, etc. It makes it so that even when guys are hurt, they try to play it off. Like for some people that are trying to say Tua kind of had a hand in this, while I don't like it, to an extent, the idea of Tua trying to, make the doctors not pay attention to what maybe was a head injury as opposed to him trying to say it was his back, it was his ankle, whatever the case was. Like, thoughts on the injury, Dame, but also like the culture in the NFL that the players, it's ingrained in their mind that even if they're hurt, they want to go past that, and it's to their detriment. Clearly, as we saw play out this past week.
Yeah, clear. I mean, the NFL literally instated a rule that if a player looks, I forgot what the exact terminology is, but if he doesn't look stable, he's automatically not allowed back in the game. It's kind of called a tour rule now, but just to backtrack from that Bills game, he absolutely should not have even came back out for that game. Watching that game, just him getting up and wobbling and not even being able to stand straight. Two teammates had to help him just walk off to the sideline, and then he had to walk off with the help of coaches to the locker room as well. Just off that, just seeing him like that, you just shouldn't be allowed to go back in the game. And that's why that Miami independent doctor got fired. But then obviously with the quick turnaround too, like he should, even if the game was on Sunday, he shouldn't have been able to play after being so woozy like that. But such a quick turnaround, only 3 days of rest. Especially after bringing him back out there, starting him on a Thursday night game, any kind of hit to the head would have done what it did to Tua because clearly he was still concussed. It was scary to watch, honestly, seeing his hands locked up like that. It was a really scary situation getting taken off the stretcher. I know he flew back with team and stuff, so that's kind of good. That all his vitals are fine and stuff, and he wasn't like paralyzed, God forbid. But it's definitely a scary situation and something that the NFL, I think, did the right thing in instituting that rule that if a player looks like they're unstable or is wobbling like that, they are just automatically aren't allowed back in, even if they pass the test. I think that's the right thing to do. But yeah, it's scary for Tua's future as well. Like Bars mentioned, this could absolutely be a career-ending injury. So it's to be seen, but I really hope for the best for him.
Yeah,
Just final thought, real quick, Jurg. Like
yeah,
I think this whole concussion protocol is ridiculous because you see guys get knocked out their shoes and they get back in the game. It's like that scene in Varsity Blues when the fat kid gets knocked out and he clearly has a concussion, and the Coach goes, "Tell me I'm holding two fingers," and he goes, "Two fingers. All right, you're good. Get back out in the game." Like it's disgusting and it needs to get looked into. But as I said, money talks. Ain't no one looking.
Yeah, I mean, you're honestly not wrong, Bars, and that's kind of been the culture in the NFL, and that's why I hope, like, for the quote unquote steps the NFL has tried to take in fixing the concussion stuff, this is a massive step back in the fact that one of their organizations, an organization that already had scandal this past offseason because of the drama of Stephen Ross and the firing of Brian Flores, because of the reports coming out that Brady, his retirement was actually a ploy to try to get ownership in the Dolphins and be able to then play at the same time, because that's a real reason why he actually quote unquote retired. That's like it's one of those things that an organization already having some issues now has this going on with it. Not like just not a good look at all. And like it's one of those cases, and we've talked about this before, Bars. Funny enough, me being a big hockey guy, you being a baseball guy, we talk about sports taking one step forward, two steps back. I think this is the case with how this Tua situation was a lot to play out here for the NFL. To say the very least, they're still behind the times. Sports as a whole, not just the NFL, but sports as a whole, certainly still behind the times when it comes to concussions and properly dealing with those, and just putting their foot down, like you guys said, like even if Tua had tried to BS his way out of it, he shouldn't have been allowed to go back in that game. Like I know the Dolphins and all them were emotional, and I didn't think Tua had like really had da da da. If you really care, like I'm sorry to say, but if they really cared, they wouldn't have let him go back in the Bills game, wouldn't have let him suit up for the Dolphins game. For the Bengals game, excuse me, because like second impact, I forget the name, second impact syndrome, I think. The fear of getting another concussion so quickly after getting the initial one, like that is a real thing, and like just to thank God that Tua is okay right now, and hopefully he's going to be able to stay good to say the least. We'll see what happens for the most part going on in the season, and if he comes back, when he comes back, if he comes back at all this season for sure. Moving on in the rundown, the Eagles, a big win over the Jaguars, boys. The reason I want to bring this up is because the Eagles remain the only unbeaten team in the NFL. Jaguars had a little bit of hype going into this game, but that Eagles defense was just absurd. Like what, 5 or 6 turnovers forced in this game after the Jaguars came out and scored the first 2 scores of this game, going up 14-0. The Eagles took it the rest of the way. This was great. Dane, you were I think you and me had questions about the Eagles more so than Chris, but I think we both have said on the podcast the last couple of weeks the Eagles have been proving us wrong. What did this win tell you about that team?
Yeah, I've mentioned how I think the Eagles are one of the true contenders in this league. This was a very ugly game with the weather, how cold it was, all the rain. That's why I thought Jaguars maybe had a chance, but I think the Jaguars played relatively well um, compared to how good the Eagles are. But like I said, from the defense to the offense, this team is extremely impressive, and they continue with this today. They won a really ugly game. It wasn't pretty. They didn't go out and blow out the Jaguars. The Jaguars are a pretty solid team. Trevor Lawrence finally looks like that guy. So for the Eagles to go in there under the condition that they did and win this game was extremely impressive to me. Um, it's still to be seen when they. I'm excited for this Cowboy game when they play in. I think not this week, the next week. I think that's gonna be a real test. Dak should be back by then. I think that's gonna be a real test for them because of how good that Dallas defense is. But for now, I'm really impressed with the Eagles, and they just keep doing what they're supposed to do. And Jalen Hurts is really proven to be that quarterback that the Eagles are looking for.
You know me, Jurg. I absolutely despise the Eagles, but I gotta agree with Dame. They are just thoroughly impressive. Especially Jalen Hurts. He's just been killing it. This wasn't the game exactly that proved that Jalen Hurts has been killing it because the weather, and it was just an ugly game up and down. If you look at the play-by-play, it's almost like punt, interception, touchdown, punt. Then like someone scored a touchdown. Then like fumble, punt. It was just disgusting in total, but hey, man, the Eagles got it done, and like Dame said, this is what makes me think that they are contenders in the league because these are kind of the wins that really show what you're made. Is when things aren't going your way, you still find a way, which is what also makes just a quick shout out to my Giants. That's what makes us look low key nice because we find a way. But back to the Eagles, yeah, it's just an ugly game and just the Jaguars, shout out to them as well because as ugly as this game was, they were keeping up with the Eagles as long as they could. You know it wasn't gonna last, but man, did they give it a hell of a try.
Yeah, well, yeah, for sure. We've been very glowing of the Jaguars, like the turnaround from that toxic wasteland that was Urban Meyer's coaching tenure last season has definitely been there to say the least. Doug Peterson, I've had my critiques of him in the past. Love what he's done, man. Like love what he's done there. He's really brought around a true turnaround for that franchise, and I'm happy for him. Like for me, just personally, real quick, that that game showed me that I severely underestimated the Eagles defense going into this season, and I would just like to apologize because, dear Lord,
Oh,
that
me and
Eagles
you both.
defense, that Eagles defense really came to play, and I had some questions about them. Questions no more. They look good. To say the very least. I mean, Bars, you kind of mentioned, it's funny you brought up the Giants in there, but you mentioned the idea of coming back in games. Well, two teams in the AFC East did that, the Jets and the Buffalo Bills. The Jets coming back down 10 points against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Zach Wilson, big fourth quarter for him, 2 touchdown drives to win. And the Buffalo Bills, massive comeback against the Baltimore Ravens, ending with getting a fourth down stop on like fourth and goal and then securing the game winning field goal. Thoughts on those, what each win, because it's two different ideas of the wins there, Bars. The Jets, there's some promise to them this season, but the most important thing is to see Zach Wilson play, whereas the Buffalo Bills kind of a little bit rough going here because of the loss to the Dolphins. How are they going to rebound? What did those wins tell you about the Jets and Bills separately, Bars?
What this showed me about the Jets is it looked a little sloppy. I'm not gonna say it looks like they have their guy, but it was positive signs, especially from Zach Wilson, because he just got better and better as the game got on. It was very ugly from quarters 1 to 3. Middle of 3 is where he kind of started putting something together. I can't lie, him doing the gritty after he caught that touchdown, that had me hyped for. As a New York fan, it's just I'm happy to see both these franchises finally semi looking together. But what this game showed me more than anything is there's definitely a culture change over there with the Jets as well. The players just look excited. They look like they're ready to play. There were some questions if Salah was the guy. I myself was questioning that. But from what this win showed me, it shows me that they might be ready to take the next step. Is it going to be this year? I don't know, but if they do what the Giants are doing, and that's just staying competitive in these games and not giving up, because there are still holes. Although this is the best roster the Jets have had in a very long time, and it's not, it has pieces. I'm not going to say it's completely full. Injuries has taken this team apart, but it still has some pieces. It shows me that they're possibly making the right steps to take that next path. And for the Bills, like you said, these are two completely different games. This was another game that was not pretty whatsoever for the Bills, but it was nice to see them bounce back from that loss because they gave it their all in Miami. That's when you saw the headset thrown by the offensive coordinator. It was just that was a gut wrenching game where even at the end of it, on both sides of both teams, both sidelines, you saw the players just laying on their backs, absolutely exhausted. For Christ's sake, Tua's career might be over, as we said, and the Bills, although it's the other side, same thing. All their players were exhausted, and they came out and won this one. It wasn't pretty because it came down to an interception off Lamar Jackson and to the field goal, but it shows you that maybe this is finally their year.
Yeah. Yeah, Stephon Diggs, I think himself even said like that Dolphins game he was the most tired, and like it was hot as hell. It was hot as
Yeah,
hell.
dude, you saw. I think it was Jalen Waddle. They zoomed in on. He was literally helmet off, just face planted, freaking absolutely exhausted. It was nuts. It looked like they went to war.
I think all the linemen lost at least 5 to 10 pounds just from that game alone, with how much they sweat, to say the very least. Dame, to you, the Jets and the Bills, of course, two different situations, two different teams going two different places this season, but two comeback wins. Your thoughts on each one?
Yeah, for the Bills to start off, I think it's really impressive for them to beat a team like the Ravens, who I have high hopes for this season. Um, Obviously they're struggling throughout the game. When the Bills don't blow someone out like they have for with the Rams and the Titans, you kind of look at them like, damn, are they okay? Or can they only beat like the good teams? Can they only beat the bad teams or beat down on the bad teams? But you're not going to win every game in a blowout, especially NFL, especially against teams like the Ravens and playing against Lamar Jackson and that defense. So to come out with a close game, something that I just don't trust Josh Allen with in close games, to come out and do that and win a close game like that, I think it's says a lot to them and says a lot to the kind of changes going on there and how they're taking the next step. So that's really impressive for them, and obviously probably arguably the best team in the NFL right now, team to beat. But then going over to the Jets, obviously as a Jets fan, this is a very feel good win. I think Zach Wilson, his first game back, was gonna struggle, and granted he did, but I didn't think he was gonna be as good. I look as good as he did. I think up to from starting point to when he caught the touchdown, I think he looked great. And then from then on to the fourth quarter, I think it was a little slow. I think a lot had to do with a couple drops, couple bad play calling, but overall, He didn't dwell on it. They had a chance to win at the end of the game, and he told his offense to go score a fucking touchdown. I think that's extremely ballsy. I think that's exactly what you want in your leader as a quarterback. So seeing that, it was great. He went 6 for 6 for like on 67 yards or something like that, and a touchdown to lead the Jets to win in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is one of the best defenses in the league, and playing away. Both those that combination is really tough to overcome, especially when you're down. So just able to see that and have a quarterback that can take control of the offense like that and come down and give you a game-winning drive, it makes me really happy as a Jets fan.
Yeah, he really showed a lot, and I'm with you, Dame. Like the middle portion, he struggled, but I also think like there were a couple like plays that he made that the receivers just dropped. I think, so like Wilson for his first game back, I think he showed out a lot, and like you said, that confidence in the fourth quarter, that's what you want to see out of your young franchise quarterback. Big like important win right there, because like you said, even with no T.J. Watt, that's still a very well coached Steelers defense that he was able to come back against away. Big time win for Wilson there. And for the Bills, of course, big for the standings. The Ravens, that's the second time in the last couple of weeks that they've had a double-digit point collapse. And, some people are going to try to point out questions about that team. I'm with you, Dame. I still think, relatively speaking, the Ravens are fine. I don't think I had them winning the division going into the season, but now I definitely had them as a wild card team for sure. I still think they're a playoff team, but some things kind of need to be figured out. I don't, although here's the thing, like, I think with this game, I think I don't put this so much on the defense. The offense needs to make one more play. Like you need to expect a beat up defense to, have that kind of game, especially because Josh Allen's the other quarterback. The offense needs to make one more play, and they just failed at doing that, to say the very least. So that's my 2 cents there when it comes to that game. Speaking of teams losing big games here, Dame. Broncos lose 32-23 to the Las Vegas Raiders. Raiders' first win of the season. Uh, I fully welcome Russell Wilson and Broncos slander, mainly Russell Wilson slander in any which way here. But this was a big time win for Vegas, Dame. Uh, I don't want to be cliche with the question, but I'll ask it in this way: what do you think meant more in this game? The fact that the Raiders got their first win, or the fact that the Broncos, coming into a game against a winless team, lost it?
It's always going to be the Broncos. Like, the Broncos just suck. I hate that team. I hate their coach. I hate their quarterback. I think it all goes down to them. Obviously, it hurts when your running back, Javonte Williams, goes out for the game and unfortunately suffer a season-ending injury. But other than that, I really don't know what happened to Russell Wilson. Man, he's just not the same guy that he used to be, and I just don't understand how you could give a guy like that a huge extension like that before you even played it down on your team and in your offense. But I think although I think Russell Wilson is a problem, I think the bigger problem is their head coach. I don't think he's good at all. I think he just looks nervous each and every single game. I don't know how they've had 3 primetime games already. I hate watching this team play. It's really frustrating to watch them play. I do think the defense is good, and I think Patrick Surtain is turning into one of the best corners in the league. He did an amazing job with Devontae Adams this game, and somehow the Raiders still came out with the win. Just shows you how Russell Wilson sucks and that offense sucks, and they can't move the ball up and down the field on the Raiders defense, who arguably is one of the worst in the league. You're going to see what Patrick Mahomes does to them this week. But I think it absolutely says more about the Broncos because I just think they're a shell of themselves and they're not a good team at all.
I gotta fully agree because you wrote down that we were just gonna talk about the Raiders W, Jurg, and I was just ready to berate the Broncos. This win 100% tells me more about the Broncos than it does about the Raiders. Raiders came into this 0-3, and Jurg, I'm a big numbers guy. If you look at any statistic ever in NFL history, I'm almost positive no team has ever made uh, the Super Bowl or even maybe the playoffs when starting 0-3. I know 0-2, your chances of making the playoffs dramatically dropped to like less than 20%. So imagine 0-3. So to lose to a team that essentially their future outlook in the season is just it caused them to beat you. They had to have a closed door meeting 3 weeks into the season. It's not a good look to lose to a team like that. And I've said it for years. I'm a big Russell Wilson fan, but I think for the past 4 years already, four might be a little more, but three, Russell Wilson has shown us that he wasn't the one that won those Super Bowls. It really was the Legion of Boom who won those Super Bowls because Pete Carroll let Russ cook at one point, and Russ, we found out he's not the best cook. He makes some basic grilled cheese or something. He ain't great when you let him cook because it might be at once upon a time. you should have let Russ cook. But now when it comes to, I guess, all the injuries that built up and just age, Russell Wilson doesn't look the same player he once was, because even when he gets out of the pocket, or even those random plays that used to become big money makers, he no longer does that. So it's you don't even see the same guy there. And realistically, just this whole offense is nowhere near where it needs to be, which is why the Denver Broncos, honestly, even though they are 2-2 and the Las Vegas Raiders are 1-3, they look like the worst team in this division.
Yeah. All right. I love it. Inject the Russell Wilson slander into my veins, boys. I love it. I do want to give the Raiders credit. Big time win here. Josh McDaniels finally looked like he kind of knew how to call his way out of a wet paper bag, to say the very least. And I think they need to continue to do that. He finally used Devontae Adams better too, which I think is the big thing. We called the AFC West the division of death going into this season, and the Raiders. This is a big time win, especially a division win over the Broncos this early in the season. I think they could maybe go on a mini run here. But yeah, I'm with you guys. Like the fact that the Broncos can take advantage. Worst 2-2 team in all of football. I don't care if there are worse teams, technically speaking, that are worst 2-2 team in football right now. Denver Broncos, to say the very least. Injected into my veins. The last topic on the NFL docket here before we close things out, boys. I mean, you mentioned Dame mentioned it with the primetime games. The Broncos gotten all these primetime games for whatever reason. Let's talk about the primetime games really quick that happened this past week. Chiefs Buccaneers. In the eye of the hurricane, not really, but I'm going to pretend it to make it dramatic. In the eye of the hurricane that was bearing down on Florida, which we hope that people who have been affected are able to get support and are as safe as can be. The Chiefs defeated the Buccaneers 41-31. It kind of looks like it was a high scoring game, but really a lot of the Buccaneers stuff was mainly in the second half when the Chiefs built a pretty comfortable lead. So the Chiefs, I will say, won comfortably there. The 49ers beat the Rams 24-9, further confusing everyone that has hopes that the LA Rams were the NFC favorite going into the season, but maybe not so much anymore. Bars, just your takes on, what happened in these primetime games. Chiefs and 49ers, ironically, teams that met in the Super Bowl a couple years back, both getting victories in primetime here. Kind of big for both teams, for the Chiefs continuing to start off the season well, especially making some distance in the AFC West. Whereas for the 49ers, tying things up. Every single team in the NFC West is now tied up at 2-2, boys. Fun fact. So your thoughts on the primetime games last week, Bars?
It really caught me off guard to see the fact that the Chiefs, they lost to the Colts back a couple weeks ago. So to see them get this win was a real big. It was a big win because it's the Buccaneers, but the Buccaneers are a little bit beat up. But it was good to see them put up 41 points more than anything, because you haven't seen this Chief offense, aside from like once in the preseason, put up a 40-point game this year. And you want to see them get going, because you're really starting to question, is Tyreek Hill that missing piece? So it was good to see them put up 41 and beat the Buccaneers after that disappointing loss. And honestly, I think this is what might get it going, because they play the Raiders this coming Monday. That's a division win where, unfortunately, I think the Raiders' downfall is going to keep going. And then you got the Bills after that. So you want to have at least a little bit of a good boost up, and this is where it starts. That Bills game is going to be just as nuts as that Miami game. And as for the Monday night game, man, oh man, is it scary to be the Rams right now, because it just did not look good for them. Excuse me. It just did not look good for them at all. Just at all. Allen Robinson, he's non-existent. He must have heard it was Halloween early, because he's just been a ghost this entire season. And you just see how bad they need, whether it's Robert Woods or Odell, they just need another wide receiver, because they're number three. Even Josh Reynolds, to be honest, at this point, would be a great wide receiver to have, because I can't even pronounce his name. You know me, Jurg, I can't do names. But just in general, this Rams team is not looking like they have a chance to repeat, because this offense used to be a strength, and it is the complete opposite right now. It's their weakness, and you're kind of worried about Matthew Stafford and his arm. Albeit he threw it like almost 50 times, I believe, this week. He had those elbow issues coming into the season, and I don't know if it's whether he doesn't trust anybody, but he does not look as good this season. He looks like he's just locked in on Cooper Cup, and if it's not Cooper Cup, he's dunking it down to Tyler Higbee. So whether it's the run game, the offensive line, I'd make a call to Andrew Whitworth as well. I don't know. They're missing a bunch of pieces in this offense. They just need to figure it out.
Yeah, starting with the Sunday night game, the Bucks and Chiefs. Obviously, incredible performance by Patrick Mahomes. The Bucks, I think, were ranked the number one defense in the league, and Patrick Mahomes went in there and absolutely shredded them. They obviously started off hot and kind of got slowed down throughout the game, but I mean, you can't keep up a pace of scoring a touchdown every single drive. It's just not going to happen. But it just shows you how good this guy Patrick Mahomes is. I mean, he listened through an entire offseason of guys saying that he's not even the best quarterback in the division. Josh Allen's better than him. All these guys are coming from him. He's not the best in the league, and he's not going to be the same without Tyreek Hill. And I mean, here he is. Without that fluke Colts loss, they could be arguably the best team in the league. Obviously, I think they're the best offense in the league. And he's doing this without a true number one receiver. He's doing this with guys like Marquise Scanley, Juju Smith, Hardman. He's using three different tight ends. I literally can't even name you the other two tight ends that have scored touchdowns already for them. That's not Travis Kelce. I mean, they're doing it with a run game as well. They added that element to this offense. So this offense looks unstoppable. They arguably are the best offensive line in the league, and that says a lot coming from that Super Bowl against the Bucks, where they arguably had the worst offensive line in the league. So just to see what this Patrick Mahomes and this offense is doing is absolutely incredible. As for the Bucks, I mean, I just think they just got outplayed, plain and simple. I can't really knock them. They just got outplayed. They got outplayed by a better quarterback, better offense. As for the Monday night game, I mean, I have no idea what happened to the Rams. I have no idea what happened to Matthew Stafford. I was praising Matthew Stafford throughout the whole offseason, calling it like the fifth best quarterback in the league. Saying that this team has a chance to repeat, adding a guy like Allen Robinson to help complement Cooper Kupp, adding a guy like Bobby Wagner in the middle of that defense. The team absolutely had all the ingredients to repeat, and they just look nothing like the team they looked like last year. I mean, Stafford looks like a bottom five quarterback in the NFL compared to the top five. The running game doesn't look good. Obviously, Allen Robinson, Matthew Stafford doesn't even look his way. Cooper Kupp is always going to look like Cooper Kupp, but it looks like defenses are just kind of letting Cooper Kupp catch whatever he wants, and the rest of the offense is going to get shut down. But the defense doesn't look good. Jalen Ramsey does not look like a top five cornerback in the league. I mean, this team is just an absolute mess, and like Bars mentioned, that offensive line is god awful. I don't know what they could possibly do to help that. There isn't many guys at the free agent market that can help. Teams don't usually trade offensive linemen, at least elite offensive linemen, at the trade deadline, because even if you're a rebuilding team, you still want to have a stout offensive line for your young players to kind of develop and move forward. So I have no idea how this team's going to improve. They are literally just going to have to improve within their team, and Matthew Stafford is absolutely going to have to play a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's funny. Oh, my bad there, Dame. But like my thing is here, boys. Like these are kind of because of the losses the Packers had this offseason. A lot of people, us included, predicted the Rams and the Bucks to kind of be the top two teams in the NFC. Now they're both looking not that good right now, and it's been rough. So to say the very least, the changing of the guard in the NFC is kind of happening here, where these teams that we expect to be at such a higher level are kind of falling out. And funny enough, I mean, I know it's early, but the Packers with looking better than both the Buccaneers and the Rams at this point, just based off of wins. It's wouldn't have thought that going into the season. Would not have thought that at all. But yeah, that wraps up our NFL talk in terms of the main talking points from this week. I think we really talked about everything that was important. All things aside, I would have loved to, maybe bring up some of the fun games. But I think that was the crux of it. That was the meat and potatoes, as Bars would say, taking a line from my guy himself. The most important things that happened, we just discussed it. So we're towards the end of the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. But before we finish off, of course, we need to bring up what has become our new favorite segment, my favorite segment at least, with Damon. I'm happy Bars is here to experience this now as well. He's going to be a part of this too. He's got a crown and a clown as well, because it is time for crowns and clowns. We are giving out our crown to each of us, picking our best performer of this past NFL week, and then our clown shoes to the biggest stooge of the week, to say the very least. We're going to start with crowns. Guest of honor starts it first. Bars, who are you giving your crown to for this week in the NFL season?
I guess he's a double crown winner because I gotta give it to the man I shout out at the top of the show. I gotta give it to Geno Smith, man. As much as I've probably slandered this man in the past, you gotta respect what he's doing this season. Not only did he just have back-to-back 300-yard games with 2 touchdowns, he's still throwing well over 70%. He's closer to 80% than he is to 70%. But what blows my mind with him, besides also putting up the yardage, the touchdowns, and the completion percentages, He is ahead of Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, and Lamar Jackson in average yards per throw or whatever, YPA. There you go, yards per thrown pass. Regardless, he's just laying it up right now. It's not what you expect. Can he keep it up? Who knows? But who am I to say he can't right now? He ain't writing back to none of us. He's just making his story now.
Nice, nice. I respect it. Second crown for Geno Smith on the pod this season. I love it. Dame, your crown for this week goes to.
It's gonna be Patrick Mahomes. No, it's kind of caught by answer because he's obviously, like I mentioned, the best QB in the league. But what he's doing this season and what he does against top-rated defense is incredible. I saw a stat. He's like against number one rated defense whenever he plays him. He's like 6-0 with averaging like 350 yards or like 100 pass rating, something like that. I mean, like I kind of went over this when I was talking about the Bucks game, but he heard all the talk in the offseason how everyone doubted him, and instead of kind of getting worse or downplaying it, he went out, he was motivated, and without Tyreek Hill, he's making this offense look like better than it was with Tyreek Hill. Of course, it doesn't have that element of the deep game, but he figured out a different way to make this offense work, and he's so unselfish. I mean, he's letting these bums from like the 2 yard line score touchdowns. I mean, David Bell, the backup tight end, literally took a snap under center and rushed it in for a touchdown. Said Patrick Holmes is going under center and doing it himself or throwing for a touchdown, stuff like that. I mean, what this guy is doing is just incredible, and he's got my crown for the week for dismantling another top ranked defense in the league.
Yeah. Yeah, hey, you can never go wrong with picking a superstar quarterback, especially that man, to be your crown, to say the very least. Dame. My crown for this week is going to go to Josh Jacobs for his key role in that Raiders' first win of the season. 28 carries, 144 yards, 2 touchdowns. But once again, most importantly, burying Russell Wilson only further. Like, just thank you, Josh Jacobs. I appreciate you for stepping up this week, my guy. I really do appreciate you for that. Yeah, he played great, boys. The Broncos just didn't have an answer. Made Josh McDaniels look like a very good coach, which that's saying something. I just got the crowns. Chris's crown for the week. His crown goes to Zach Wilson for how he played. This is what Chris said: franchise quarterback, play at the end when it mattered. Gritty was A1. So Zach Wilson is getting Chris's crown for the week, to say the least. We're gonna throw it back real quick. Well, actually, no, we'll keep it with Chris here. Chris's clown for the week. Now it's time for the clowns, boys. Chris's clown of the week is the Miami Dolphins for, simply put, letting Tua play. Like Bar said, we didn't even pre-plan this. Like, Chris knew we were going to talk about it, but I think he's going to have fun listening to this. But yes, Chris's clown for the week is the Miami Dolphins for letting Tua play and put him in that position. Can't say much more else about it. Dan, we'll throw it back to you. We'll go in reverse order here. Who's your clown of this week going to?
My clown of the week is going to go to Baker Mayfield. I mean, he's literally the worst quarterback in the league, and I don't even think you could debate it. They faced the Cardinals this week, a Cardinals defense that teams have been going up and down the field on and scoring as many points as they possibly want. And Baker Mayfield went out and scored 16 points. He had 2 picks, 1 touchdown, didn't even reach 200 yards. He had a average of 6.5 per. His QBR was 45.9, which is god awful. I mean, it's not like he doesn't have the weapons. I mean, he has 2 great tackles. They drafted one with the 6th overall pick. They have Taylor Moore at the other side. The team has a good offensive line. They have arguably the best running back in the league. They have weapons on the outside with DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson. Baker Mayfield is just goddamn awful, and there's no way around it. I mean, the guy's awful, and you're going to see Sam Darnold start games again for this team once he's healthy. I mean, that's saying enough when your fan base is waiting for Sam Darnold to come back to take over the starting spot.
Yeah, that says a lot. Baker's been really bad this season. Matt Rule's job probably on the line, to say the very least. Bars, your clown of the week will go to.
You know me, Jurg. I like a good debate, so I will debate. Baker is not the worst quarterback because my clown of the week isn't the quarterback, it's actually the coach. And it hurts me to say this. My clown of the week is Mike Tomlin because the fact that he just had Mitch Trubisky out there for as long as he's been out there, Mitch Trubisky is the worst quarterback in the league. Baker Mayfield at least got close to hitting 5 touchdowns this season. Mitch Trubisky has only thrown 2 touchdowns this season, and I'm not even going to get into the numbers. Everyone knows how god awful Mitch Trubisky is. So why are we waiting this long to throw in Kenny Pickett? And not only why are we waiting this long to throw in Kenny Pickett, if you were so ready to throw in Kenny Pickett in the middle of playing the Jets, why didn't you just start him this season? Because obviously this season's a wash. You might as well figure out what you got in young talent, whether it's Kenny Pickett, Pat Fryermuth, George Pickens. You've got to figure out this offense and what pieces you have, because this defense is going to be holding it together. And Mitch Trubisky isn't even a game manager, as we know. People thought he was going to come out of Buffalo being a backup to Josh Allen and look all brand new. That doesn't work for everybody. And Mitch Trubisky clearly didn't work out. He's the worst quarterback in the league, not Baker Mayfield. But clown of the week, Mike Tomlin. What you doing, coach?
What are you doing, coach? I love it. You scared me there for a sec, Bars, because when you mentioned offense and underperforming and quarterback, I thought you were going to go with my clown here, but I'm so glad you didn't. I'll make this a three-way debate, boys, because I'm going to put my hat into the ring. I'm going to go with the Chicago Bears offense as a whole. Justin Fields does not look good this season, and here are the stats to prove that. Justin Fields is 34 for 67 on the season in terms of passing, passes to attempts. I did some digging here, boys. This is where Stat Jurgen came in. 5 games this season of quarterbacks that have thrown for more than 34 completions in a game. Joe Flacco in week 1 went 37 of 59. Tua in week 2 went 36 of 50. Josh Allen in week 3 went 42 of 63. Kyler in week 3 went 37 of 58. And Tom Brady in week 4, 39 of 52. There have been 5 different games by 5 different quarterbacks where they had more completions in a single game than Justin Fields has had in 4 so far with the Chicago Bears. Clearly, they don't believe in Justin Fields. They're not putting him in a position. I thought it was supposed to get better after Matt Nagy. Turns out hasn't really, just because they're 2-2 means absolutely nothing to Chicago Bears. Offense as a whole is my clown of the week. Because, God, it's just terrible right there. Like, it is. It is not effective at all. Dear Lord. That being said, that wraps up this week's episode of the Somewhat Sports Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. As you all know, amazing episode to say the very least. Bars, thank you so much for joining us, brother. Loved having you back on. Loved having you back behind the microphone again. Let the people know where they can find you, my guy.
Man, it's gonna be coming. It ain't coming soon, but it's coming back. Bunts and Bruises. Follow me, Bars Talks, on Twitter and Instagram. Look, man, it doesn't even come out smooth anymore. That's how long it's been. But yes, please follow me, guys. It's coming back. Office is set. Job is settled. Moved into the new apartment. It's going to start coming back weekly. Bunts and Bruises. Keep your eye open for it.
Love to hear it. Yes, B&B will come back soon. Bars has a lot of big plans in the works, and Bunts and Bruises, I guess, what is 3.0 or 4.0 at this point, Bars, is going to come back stronger than ever.
I think it's 4.0. We had 2 seasons, and then I had my solo season.
4.0, ladies and gentlemen. 4th time's the charm, and it's coming back stronger and better.
Best version ever.
best version ever. Love to hear it. The 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse, all the Bunts and Bruises versions. And finally, of course, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, this is the Somewhat Sports Podcast. You can find us on YouTube and Spotify, Somewhat Spaced in Sports. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. Give us 5 stars. Give us a listen on Spotify. Leave us comments, reviews. We want to know what you think of the pod. What can we do to make it better, more fun, etc., etc. And this is one way where you can have some more fun. Go to the IG somewhat.sports to see our weekly NFL picks that me, Chris, and Dame always make. But now, starting this week and going forward for the season, Fahad's FaGodfather picks for the rest of this season. Fahad, close friend of the show, close friend of Chris from the Our 2 Cents podcast, is going to do sports betting, especially NFL betting for us throughout the season. His first bets that he's made for us so far, you could check them out on IG. He's got the Colts covering the spread tonight against the Denver Broncos at +3. And he's got Nyheim Hines going over his 38.5 yards rushing and over 27.5 yards receiving that he has. So Fahad, clearly a big fan of the Colts in this one. This is going to be a weekly thing. This is going to be an IG-specific thing where if you guys want to potentially make some money, you can go there. Fahad knows his stuff when it comes to sports gambling. He was excited. Chris was excited. Me and Dame were excited. This the most united I've ever seen Chris and Dame was agreeing to this, which that should tell you all you need to know about this. We're super excited to add sports gambling into the fold here, and I can't wait to see how this goes. I hope Fahad absolutely crushes it. Even though I technically picked the Broncos to win this week, if the Broncos lose and all that happens, I'm not gonna lie, I love it because once again, Russell Wilson slander, we stand it, ladies and gentlemen, on this podcast. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of the Somewhat Sports Podcast. As always, we will check back in next week. Whole crew should be here. Wait and see. Thank you all so much for joining us. Love you all. Keep listening. Have a good one and take care, people.